That seemed like it took an hour today, like a lot longer than usual. Anyway, boys and girls, weather report for April 20th, 2022. And we're an hour early because my balls hurt from waving them. Boys and girls.
Andrew, have you got an extra tab open?
No.
Somebody does.
Some feedback.
Yeah, we're getting feedback. Oh, it's me.
Andrew, have you got an extra tab open?
Uh-oh.
What the hell is going on? Having browser Tourette's.
Okay, I think it's coming from you, Scott, because when you mute it went away.
Yeah. So it wasn't me because I had my site muted. So anyway, yeah. So every now and then you run into something that is just so astounding that we have to talk about it. And one of those things is this little bit right here.
I had a virtual machine running, and it had the weather report setting up there. So
okay, I just wanted to play this clip, which I'm going to get a copyright strike for probably. So I don't know if you guys can see.
My goodness.
You can't help but laugh when you see that.
Yeah, it's from Idiocracy, All My Balls. So Tucker Carlson did a brilliant little piece here, and I'm not sure entirely where it starts. Let's see.
The majority report.
Got my shit together.
Yeah, that's a pretty good show. It's a progressive slant.
Yeah, 1.2 million subscribers. So anyway.
Yeah, may I make a quick comment? Slightly off topic. Speed.
Yep.
Gura mentioned this in the side chat, which is probably why you ignored it. But your hashtags in the bottom of the description, you can't separate words with spaces, or the second part of it won't be picked up. Yeah, unless you can surround it with like
quotes or something.
But I don't even know that. I just know that it doesn't work if you put a space in there.
So Tucker Carlson should just be Tucker's no space Carlson.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
you know what I took from that?
DNA and Big Bang.
What's that?
You know what I took from that?
What's that?
Gura's proof that at least some people are reading the description.
Ooh, thank you. Yeah, that
really is. It's really kind of a something I thought I'd never see. Number one, something constructive that Gura shared with us, and two, he read the description.
Yeah. So
good job, Gura. Good job, Gura.
So they broke this into a few parts, but if I don't stop it in time, I want you to notice that the guy milking the cow does not have a pail under the cow. Okay. And if you're touching a cow's nipples and you don't have a pail, I think that's called fondling. I don't know. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I think so.
When you milk a cow, you got to have a pail, right? So I don't know what the hell he's doing to this cow, but keep an eye out. So anyway, this is Tucker Carlson's new documentary on the crisis in testosterone. Apparently, there's a crisis in testosterone, but we'll talk a little bit about that. See the cow?
Yeah.
What have to do with cow milking?
Yeah.
Society.
And I'm like, right there, it's like, what the fuck? What the fuck?
What was that?
That was okay. Apparently, there's
like
a device.
A Jesus reference or something?
There's a device that you can buy to shoot red light into your balls. And apparently, they think it increases your testosterone because there were some one or two little references to this. I think they did some research. They basically use infrared light on mouse balls, and they got a slight increase in testosterone. But the but as they put it, there's no real science behind it. The sample size was extremely small. They didn't repeat the experiments, and they don't know. In general, putting a light on your entire body is good for you, except for the fucking radiation, which causes mutations, right? So, I mean, if you're going to be shining shit on your balls, be careful that there isn't a lot of radiation associated with that, because if you do it every day constantly, you're going to be in trouble. You know, you're going to end up with testicular cancer. So, but okay, let's see.
Collapses then. You're in hard times. Well, hard iron sharpens iron, as they say.
Now, you want to notice the amount of really well-built males with their shirts off, and ask yourself exactly what is being advertised here.
And those hard times inevitably produce men who are tough, men who are resourceful, men who are strong enough to...
just drinking eggs.
Then they go on to re-establish order.
I'm sorry.
And so the cycle...
She fucked up and she talked over the part where he says men who can restore the order, right? So he's talking about how in America we don't have enough testosterone. Okay, there were some studies done in the last 20 years where they found out that in the 15 to 30-year-old category that there was a lowering of testosterone, but they related it to BMI or body mass index. You know, that basically there's a little bit of obesity and your testosterone levels will go lower. But for the most part, lower testosterone levels in general are caused by our aging population. So we have a lot more men that are living a lot longer now who are getting testosterone tests, and we're finding out that testosterone does indeed lower as you get older, you know, which can present problems. You know, it's healthy to have a good, strong level of testosterone. But why is Tucker Carlson obsessed with testosterone? I mean, is he having a little trouble getting it to work, or, you know,
objection?
I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure, but it's let's see.
Men who are tough, men who are resourceful, men who are strong enough to survive. And then they go on to re-establish order, and so the cycle begins again.
Okay, we're going to re-establish order. Now, think about that from the fundamentalist Republican agenda to reestablish.
Apparently, they want more Nazis to shine red lights on their balls.
I think so. I'm not entirely sure. I think it goes a little further. Okay, I guess that's it. So he's got a trailer out for this documentary, and and she had a little more to say on it, I think.
The entirety of media culture doesn't center you as your own like individual identity as a white man. So you've got to do all these things that, like, you know, female influencers and models do, essentially. Like, this is what this market is. It's a way women have been told to feel insecure about how they look for you know, decades at this point, and here's how you're gonna buy this corset to make you passed out, but you're gonna look really skinny, and now you're gonna use Botox and fillers to make yourself look a certain way. But now men get to feel insecure too. So here's how you can tan your ball sack.
Yeah, the cosmetics of
Anyway.
So, number one,
like
this whole subject has been like a muse for Jefferson Spatchcock, because he's just writing so much funny shit in the side chat.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And number two, those clinics, didn't they advertise them for quite a while in the mid teens of testosterone clinics? Go and get tested, and they'll give you stuff to up your testosterone or whatever, or maybe testosterone injections. I don't even know. Well, but weren't those really popular for a while, advertised everywhere? I just don't see them advertising those much anymore. And I wonder if this is the next thing in making money off of people's insecurities and obvious projections.
Yeah, it is. And I think I linked a blog that talks about it. Let me see if I linked it or not. Hang on a second. Why won't you escape?
I think for some reason there's a whole generation of men that grew up and they weren't allowed to listen to Mr. Rogers, who said, you're perfect just the way you are. And I want everybody, liberal, conservative, Christian, non-Christian, other belief system, look at the camera, look at my eyes as I look in the camera. You're perfect just the way you are. Don't go sunning your balls or irradiating your balls.
Yeah, Tucker Carlson says men should try testicle tanning to boost testosterone levels.
And
then
there's,
they have,
there's a man of testosterone right there.
Yeah.
Look
well,
at,
that's not his usual look. Is his face is twisted up and he's looking at the camera like he just now opened his eyes for the first time in the world. And it's like, what?
Mhm.
What is that?
Mhm.
What am I seeing? Let's see. Few human studies have shown a link between red light and testosterone, and the studies that do exist have small sample sizes. There's absolutely no controlled study that proves that. Urologist Mark Goldstein told Inverse. Sign up for, we don't want to sign up for your newsletter. Anyway, so if I haven't linked this, I will in the description. And there were a few other things on, let's see, what do we have? Testosterone levels, urology times. Testosterone levels show a steady decrease among young U.S. men, but I don't think that has anything to do with your ability to function in society. It has to do with overall male health. Basically, we need a certain level of testosterone, and if it hasn't, I think mine started falling when I was in my 50s, and they just noted that it's about maybe 10% lower than it should be. But that is probably not going to have any effect on me at all or kill me. And it certainly doesn't prevent me from picking up my Glock and shooting at you. I don't know. I mean, anybody can do that, testosterone or not. All you need is fingers. Anyway, so that is all I had there.
Hey, Nestleg.
Yeah. So you wanted to talk a little bit about, hang on a second here. I want to go back to normal view. You wanted to talk a little bit about your encounter with Sal Cordova. Now, you just told me backstage that he again brought up the fact that I used to do drugs, claiming that my name.
Indeed.
Yeah. Apparently,
and he said it repeatedly. In fact, in a few of the videos I watched.
Yeah, what is wrong with him?
Well, number one, I thought just about all versions of Christianity, and correct me on this, side chat. Your comments and opinions would be welcome. When you are a Christian, don't you have the attitude that you don't hold people's past against them once they've made a decision to make changes in their life?
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Do you have to dress that with certain theological, flourishes, or just the fact that somebody, whether they're a Christian or not, has gone into recovery and has accomplished a heck of a lot since then? Doesn't that count for anything? And why are you holding it against somebody?
And now, if you drink excessively or take drugs like methamphetamine or drugs like that excessively from the time you're a teenager until you're about 40, 50, or 60 years old, you can end up with a syndrome called, they used to call it wet brain syndrome, where basically you wipe out your hippocampus and you actually have mental illness. And I know a number of individuals who have used all their life and never been sober, and they have used to such an extent and so steadily that they've actually got this mental illness. Now, these are mentally ill people, and they amount to about less than maybe 0.1% of all alcoholics and drug addicts that we know in the United States. And everybody else, when they quit, there's no long-term effects on your brain at all. You're not going to wreck your brain. You can always, So I mean, it's just, and for him to be that judgy.
Doesn't mean you should go through it for a long time, of course, but. Yeah.
Right. And, what is the alternative? That I hide my past, that I hide from, the fact that I was a drug addict and an alcoholic, that I pretend that shit doesn't exist. Okay. Is that my alternative, to shut up about it? No, I talk about it because I know there are people out there still suffering, and those people need to hear that I am somebody who's 15 years sober and rebuilt my life, basically. At least rebuilt my credit. I don't know. But I mean,
you can change.
what a jerk. Yeah, people can change, you know, and when people quit using, I mean, it's not like your wet brain just because you did a drug, for Christ's sake.
And it's not the definition of being filled with the Spirit to have grudges against people anyway.
I know.
So, Sal, what are you trying to project? What are you trying? What are you trying to say with your life?
Sorry,
go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's largely because of the fact that Speed here is a satanic evolutionist.
Evolutionist. Well, it's because he doesn't have any counter to me. That's why he's blocked me, and that's why he refuses to talk to me, because he cannot. Because just like you last night, when you held him accountable for some of his bullshit about cosmology, he got really mad at you.
Yeah.
You know, and he even told you, he said, "I'm not trying to convince you. I don't care about you and your opinion. All he cares about is his propaganda and his flock, who are going to fall to his feet and say, 'Oh, Sal Cordova, you know so much,' you know."
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what got me, like in LPP's stream last night. That's what really confused me, I guess. I mean, like, he's saying, "Oh, I'm not trying to persuade you or anything." It's like, well, if you're saying that I'm trying to persuade you, and you're naturally going to come back with counter arguments and whatnot, and like that's how you have a free flowing natural discussion, and
Right.
you come to agreement on something. If you're not trying to persuade each other, if you're just saying, "Okay, listen to me on this, and this. Okay, go home," like that's not a fruitful discussion. That doesn't accomplish anything.
Or telling you, look it up, like the thing on plasma, like plasma redshift. There's one guy who wrote an article. He's claiming that the redshift could be accounted for by light passing through hot, sparse electron plasmas.
Yeah, I mean, like we know that interstellar space is filled with all kinds of diffuse gases and particles and things of that nature. But I mean, we'll get into this more later, because the model that he seems to be advocating from these, they don't seem to be astronomers as far as I can tell, but these researchers appears to be a variation of what's called a tired light scenario, which, for anyone who hasn't heard of that term, has pretty much been very well debunked by astronomical observations. Like it kind of appears now and then because most people aren't aware of it, and so when you come up with a new idea like that, you think it's new, but it's actually just a rehash of something from 5-10 years ago. Like astronomical observations show that cosmological redshift, tired light for anything can't explain it. It has to be something else, and the best, most likely answer, which is what I was trying to argue last night, was that it's due to cosmic expansion as described by the mathematics of general relativity.
I'm trying to so.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, or what I was originally gonna say, there is diffuse gas and particles and, well, plasma in intergalactic interstellar space. So yeah, that could make things redder. But here's the kicker. When I was doing some research on this so-called interstellar reddening, it produces this redshift-like effect, but it's rather easy to differentiate it between the kind of redshift that we see in distant galaxies, because when you look at redshift in distant galaxies, for example, you're looking at the absorption lines, and they're kind of shifted to the redder end of the spectrum. They're shifted to longer wavelengths, and the thing is, they're all shifted. All these absorption lines move equally. They're all equally affected by this, whatever's causing the redshift. In interstellar reddening, due to plasma or gas or whatnot interacting with the light, you get a non-equal shift in the absorption lines. And in fact, some of the spectrum appears brighter than other parts. I think it's the blue end of the spectrum actually. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the point is cosmic redshift affects the spectrum equally. Interstellar reddening due to plasma and whatnot doesn't affect the spectrum equally. So it's not it's rather easy to tell them apart. And we have looked at the spectrum and we know it's not due to dust and whatnot. We can be pretty confident.
That was my first thought, is that it wouldn't be as consistent as the distances. Basically, it would depend on what was between us and whatever we're looking at, right? So it would be, you'd be able to tell the difference.
Well, so I mentioned the tired light scenario, which is the basic idea behind it is that rather than redshift from distant galaxies being due to cosmic expansion, or the expansion of space between us and them, it's rather due to what I was mentioning earlier, collision, or the light colliding with matter along the way, or being gravitationally or interacting gravitationally with other things, and so it loses energy along the way. And according to this scenario, that's why we see the light appear to be redshifted to longer wavelengths. And in fact, I think Sal pointed out a kind of scattering paper which admits that they're trying to figure out how the like why the sky is different colors and things like that, and they propose this model of scattering light based on the photons losing energy. So it clearly matches this tired light class of models. The problem with these class of models, and the reason why they don't work, is because if you change the energy of the photon of a light, if you change the light's energy, basically, it results in a change in its momentum, because the equation of the photon's energy links energy with its momentum and the speed of light. And so if you change the photon's energy, if it loses energy, its light is, or the momentum is going to change, and that causes the light to kind of scatter and smear out in a certain way. Now, the obvious side effect of that is when we look at distant galaxies, they should appear to be smeared out as well. The images of them should appear blurry. And in fact, the farther away a galaxy is, the blurrier the image should be, because if the light has taken more time to collide with all this stuff on the way, it should have smeared out more and more to get to us. Hence, the images of galaxies farther and farther away should appear blurrier and blurrier. Of course, that's not what we see. Images of galaxies from telescopes near and far look crisp as ever, and there's no evidence of blurry images here. So that, among many other things, which we could get into if we want, is why tired light and these alternative scenarios for cosmic redshift just don't match observations.
Yeah, this article is from 2004, and I don't think he made a very big bang. So
I see what you did there.
you see what I did there? Oh, I'm
Plasma,
good at
yeah.
this.
Man. Comedy genius.
Plasma redshift by this Brynjolfsson, and he concludes that plasma redshift can explain the cosmological redshift. Plasma redshift can explain the cosmological microwave background. And so this is his idea. And I believe I did link this paper.
There are also plasma cosmologies. I don't know if that's what he's referring to here.
I don't know. Anyway, so it would be interesting to look into it. And the thing is that, okay, Cell's going out and finding these one-off people who are, basically criticizing the Big Bang and criticizing expansion. What is his reason for doing this? How does that supposedly prove 6,000 years? What is his?
I'm not entirely sure.
I mean, even if cosmic inflation isn't a thing and the Big Bang never happened, and it's something entirely different that we haven't quite figured out yet, what does that tell us? That just tells us that we don't understand what's going on yet.
Yeah, I
And
don't know
so-
if I don't know if I said this while we were doing weather report, but I know we talked about it before the show yesterday. It's not like scientists are being secretive about problems with the standard model or whatever or
Exactly.
what have you. It's that when there's a problem, it's all over the YouTubes anyway, and it's obviously all over papers and things like that. That hey, there's a problem here. Here's where we're getting contradicting information about the cosmological constant. Here's this. Here's that. There's something going on, and we're trying to figure out how to reconcile it all. Secular science is very aware of that and very open and honest about it.
Right.
I don't understand the point he's trying to make, other than just finding little pieces of propaganda to give to the sheep.
Yeah, and it's basically his whole
Paragraphs of propaganda.
His ministry is involved in just these one-off things. And
I mean, like that's kind of the issue I have with it here, is because just because you find a contradictory point here doesn't negate the fact that all the other points line up. That's kind of the big misconception about scientific theories in general, isn't it? Like, if you find an outlier here or there, then somehow that disproves the rest of the theory elsewhere. Like, I mean,
Right.
if it's big enough, it could, but like, these are kind of minor issues, and the fact that everything else is pointing to this one idea suggests that the model itself maybe needs to be adjusted or something, but that doesn't mean the model itself doesn't work in any way, because it clearly works for everything else on the other side.
Right. Yeah,
It drives me up the wall.
Well, I guess that's how propaganda works.
Yeah.
And yeah, he also mentioned
Over exaggerating the issues.
He was something related. He was talking to John a little bit later, and they were talking about, and he's also still pissed off because apparently and this is where I got into trouble with Sell, because John Peterson said a snarky little thing, but apparently Sell offered to teach children in this church about real science, and they turned him down because the church didn't really give a shit about that, apparently. And Sell is completely butthurt about this. So he thinks there's this like conspiracy among churches to be woke and whatever. And then they went on and they talked about all the divisions that are happening, like I guess in the Methodist church and the Baptist church and all that stuff. And John doubled down and said, this is why I don't go to church. Well, John doesn't go to church because he doesn't give a shit about Christianity, actually. But anyway, they were going on about, how bad the church is at presenting, at being a science teacher. And basically criticizing the church for not doing more of this sciencey stuff in church.
Why does the church need to be a science classroom?
Yeah, I know. It just doesn't. And
yeah, that's a question. That for sure is a question.
Most pastors and most churches are just like, come on, dude, shut up. I mean, that's not what we're doing here. We're a church. We're teaching about the Bible and Christianity, right? Yeah, exactly. You don't need to start this big war with science, and start coming up with all this bullshit.
But it's like what Neil deGrasse Tyson often says, like, there has been a long history of church knocking down the science classroom doors and saying, teach this in here, but there is a very, very scant history of the science teachers knocking down the church doors and saying, teach science in the church.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Anyway, so he did another one of his wonderful World of Disney things. Did you watch that?
Multiple ones?
Yeah, he has two of them.
Oh.
So the second one was...
I was there for the first half of it, I think.
Oh, you're talking about that guy named Disney?
Yeah,
Michael. He wasn't, because remember, a big evangelical pastime is criticizing Disney.
Yeah, because Disney's woke now.
They're woke, whatever. Disney has been the target of evangelical activism for decades.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. Anyway, So I was going to look at his. He said he listed the papers. Yeah, he did. Okay, but unfortunately, a lot of his links don't work.
Yeah, pretty much Germania. That's what Sal was arguing.
What's that?
He said Sal is a real scientist, unlike Speed, who's just a wannabe real scientist. That's
real
pretty much what Sal was saying last night.
Yep, I want to be a
What he
real
was
scientist.
implying.
Yeah, I want to be a real scientist too. Let me see if I can open this thing. Cell hasn't learned that your links are truncated. Okay, this one does open. So, oh wait a minute, this is Alas, Lewis, and Barnes. What the hell is this?
Barnes the cosmologist?
Oh yeah, okay, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's the one. Let me see here. YouTube. This one.
Yep,
Last
there we go.
was-
Yeah, he's
okay.
pretty good.
Yeah. So, wasn't he talking against expansion or something with somebody?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
I thought it was somebody. I don't know. I listened to just a second of that. But anyway, I was trying to check out Cell's links. Let's see.
Are you
Forbes.
referring to the Crawford guy he mentioned?
Maybe. I'm not sure. Here's Michael Disney on non-time dilation in SN. So he does have some links here. Let's see. Open a link in new tab. What is this
Yeah,
one?
the David Crawford paper.
Okay. And that's one you're familiar with?
Yeah, I've kind of been, well, I didn't know about it until recently, but apparently David Crawford is one of these astronomers, as far as I can tell. I haven't been able to find him on many websites, actually, but apparently he argues for a static universe, and he has a bunch of papers going through why he thinks there are good reasons for a static, non-expanding universe. There we go.
Yeah.
And this supernova time dilation is one of them. What I find interesting, of course, and what I was trying to say last night is, don't you think if this guy happened to find, I mean, and I'm not saying it's a cut against him or anything, but like, if you just happen to find a flaw in the methodology that points to a separate conclusion, and if he puts this out there, isn't it kind of suspicious that all these knowledgeable expert cosmologists in the field who know what they're doing, obviously, haven't for some odd reason seen the same problem and gotten on his side or anything, and are just continuing to publish several papers after the last few decades that indicate that time dilation is a fact in supernova light curves? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he's got a whole bunch of links here. I wonder if I've linked his video. I think I did link his video in my description. But yeah, I did. So he's got a bunch of links to a bunch of papers that are worth looking at. And there's always your novel scientist with his novel idea. And
Yeah.
we've seen that in biology over and over again, where today we know which ones of them were right?
Yeah.
Like Lynn Margulis and who was the other famous one?
It's like they always say, for every bunch of scientists, there's a crackpot in the mix. But
yeah, but for every bunch of scientists, there's also a forward-thinking genius that's going to turn the field
that's true.
somewhat
Yeah.
on its head, right? And we know that, and we're always looking out for that. And I'm
Yeah.
sure that people are strongly considering and checking their facts. I don't know. Kind of reminds me of ERVs, which is what the whole topic was about last night. Did you get into any discussion about ERVs?
Not really, but I heard, John LPP was talking about ERVs and how apparently Snake was right. One of his points was that ERVs between chimps and humans are in the same location, and LPP was saying, oh, well, he's arguing this, that therefore they must share a common ancestry. And he said he was being he wasn't being a detailed list of all the reasons why it could support common ancestry there, but I don't think LPP quite understands why ERVs support common ancestry to begin with.
Yeah,
honestly. Like
there's a
he
little bit
mentioned
here.
the same location, for example, but there are a host of other reasons why they're so valuable.
Oh, let's see here. Oh, I closed the tab. I shouldn't have done that. So Snake was right, and Donnie had a little debate last night, right?
Yeah.
So that's what was. Which one was that? Ellison Barnes. I'm trying to find the. Oh, here's the debate. I got the debate. I'll show that.
I unfortunately did not happen to see the debate.
I just listened to as much SFT as I could stand, and then I couldn't stand anymore. And I'll tell you exactly where I shut it off. Let's see here. Okay.
The thing I hate is when I decide, well, tonight I'm just going to sit back and read and not worry about what's on YouTube. I'll miss something like that.
Yeah. And God bless you, Scott, that you did that instead of watch this shit. Because, okay, listen to him.
There are some important questions we have to answer. Why are there ERV sequences shared between the genomes of organisms? And two, if viral-like sequences in the genomes of organisms are functional, which I am going to argue is the fact today, why do they bear similarity to viral genetic material? So as we know, the entire junk DNA paradigm has been overturned essentially.
Yep, and I shut it off right there. The entire junk DNA paradigm has been overturned, and he keeps saying that over and over again, just like he says that the entire chromosome 2 fusion has been overturned. And like that is
the Y chromosome molecular clock has been overturned, and yada yada yada.
Blah, 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 blah. Anyway, I couldn't fucking believe he said that. So the thing about junk DNA is, when creationists bring up junk DNA, they force us to take the other half of that and push back on them in a binary manner. And we shouldn't be doing that, because there is no, on some definitions of junk, there is no junk. And on other definitions, there's a hell of a lot of it. Okay. And it's neither one is a scientific term at all. So, like, for instance, you have on your hand right now, you have a dead skin cell. And that dead skin cell is functional, or is it not functional? Well, it's going to fall off in about 5 minutes, right? But if you hit your hand on something, that dead skin cell could have a very, very, very tiny effect on protecting your skin, on protecting, the live cells underneath your skin, right? So every cell in your body, even though you're shedding them constantly and they're dying, has some sort of functionality. Okay. Now, your dead skin cells are less functional, probably, than your heart cells. That's the cells that are blasting through ATP, beating your heart right now. If you lost 1,000 of those, it might be a bigger deal than if you lost 1,000 skin cells. Now, DNA and the strand, basically the entire sequence of DNA has that same characteristic where it is all, every cell has a particular sequence of DNA in it. And every cell has a functional whole that it, something that it does on the whole that makes it the kind of tissue it is in your body. And every single nucleotide of that DNA in some manner has something to do with that whole. But can we call it all functional? Because, for instance, one of those nucleotides, if you looked at 1,000 different individuals, you'd find that one of those nucleotides was GCT or A. It didn't seem to matter which one it was, right? So across 1,000 very healthy individuals, that DNA, that particular nucleotide makes no difference at all. And we know that. But if you move one nucleotide to the left, Okay, and you change the amino acid in the protein. Well, if we look at 1,000 people now, we might find an amino acid where it doesn't make a difference at all. It doesn't matter if you change alanine for glycine or whatever. Okay. And then, but on the other hand, you might find an amino acid that makes all the difference in the world. It kills you. Like for instance, if you had that particular mutation when daddy loved mama, basically you as an embryo would die in the fallopian tube, and your mother she would have a normal menstrual cycle, and you'd never know that there was a pregnancy. And that happens about 50% of the time, and it's purifying selection. So this whole argument about junk DNA, when people say it, we should tell them to shut the fuck up. Because you're immediately talking nonsense if you want to talk about it that way. What's going on in biology and in cells, in embryology, and how cells differentiate is like this universe of complexity that we're unwinding, and it has nothing to do. Nothing rides on saying what's functional and what's not. That's all we care about, is what's conserved and what's not. And if you look at the conserved parts, okay, you're going to find out that we have the same conserved amino acids and nucleotides as a lot of bacteria. There are a lot of things that we still retain that, right? And we are very similar to frogs in those conserved parts.
Yeah.
And we're very similar to a whole lot of other things. But then exactly. The non-conserved parts is what we're interested in for phylogeny, because those non-conserved parts will show a phylogeny. They'll show that we're more similar to chimpanzees than we are to frogs and chickens. And in other areas, that there's just all sorts of goings on there that you have to statistically work out. Yeah. And that's why we do phylogeny.
Though I would quibble a bit there and say that conserved sequences can also be used in phylogenetics.
Yeah, and they also conserved sequences also have a variable amount of conservation among the sequences, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Like the third codon is going to vary more,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so it's statistics, and to talk about it in what's functional and what's not, and what God did and what God didn't, is just bullshit, And it's I've got something here on ERVs that I want to show you, and the thing about it. Okay, so now viruses are a real fucking problem for creationists. They're having a hell of a time with it, and because of that, in the last 10 years. They have mounted this assault on just like they had a problem with junk DNA, right? They have a problem with ERVs because ERVs are the most likely place to look for DNA that is not entirely functional. Okay, not just ERVs, but lines and signs and transposons in general. So let me see if I can show this presenter view. Nope. Yep, presenter view. Wait a minute.
So it seems like Chris Peacock saw the debate last night, and I'm interested in hearing, or if he thinks he saw any overall good points, I guess, from either side. Right. Just his general thoughts there, if he's still around.
Yes.
Ooh, that's good.
Okay, so here's the entire genome. So lines, which are transposons, make up 20%. Signs make up 13%. ERVs make up 8%. Roughly 48% of our genome is involved in these transposons that look very much like viruses. They sequence the same as some viruses that we know of outside of, just regular viruses, retroviruses. And so, and then overall down here, we have 1% basically of DNA fossils. We have RNA fossils. We have pseudogenes, 1.2%. Where do we have the, I'm trying to find the coding. Okay, protein coding genes, about 1 to 2% at the most, right? So those are protein coding. Now, a really huge chunk is the in intergenetic areas and the introns, basically. So coding genes, which we used to consider the only thing that was functional when we first discovered the genome 60 years ago, we looked at it and it's like, holy shit, not that much of this is functional. What is going on? And since then, we found all these other things that are going on. But we got half of the genome that is with these transposons, right? Now, the thing about transposons that creationists are having a tough time with, they're trying to say that now that God designed them into Adam and Eve, that God put these viruses in Adam and Eve's genomes. And the problem with that, and then they're saying, oh, the one he put into the placenta, the HERVK, I think it is, the one that shows functionality when the embryo implants itself in the placenta. They're trying to say, oh, that proves functionality because we found 6,000 nucleotides out of 3.2 billion that do something. And it looks like because of the amount of mutation that thing's had, that it has been there for around 300 million years. So this particular virus got into mammalian genomes about 300 million years ago. And eventually, and they say, oh, and you think that it suddenly became functional. Well, if you want to say 100 million years, it suddenly...
Sorry, could you say that again?
Shut the fuck up, Siri.
I'm having trouble hearing.
I know you are. Goddamn Siri. Anyway, so it's ridiculous. They found function, like they found things that transposons do because they're in the DNA, just like your dead skin cells are on your hand, and they're going to have some effect on the entire, on the whole of it, right? And that effect is going to be fine-tuned by evolution with either purifying or positive selection to basically create a working organism at every stage of the game. But now, for the most part, I think they found out that out of 80,000 ERVs, only 119 of them, and I'm trying to find a source for this, but I can't, or I haven't been able to yet. Only 119 of them are even transcribed. So if they're not transcribed, what do? The thing is, they're all copies. All of these lines you see up here, they're all copies of each other. And we can see that over time they've mutated, and we can use that information to create phylogenies because of the way they mutated. But we can tell that they no longer function as viruses that move around. Now, John Maddox was saying last night that he thinks that these viruses that God put in our genome actually jump into another part of the genome and do something. That never fucking happens. They believe that. They think that these jumping genes jump into a precise location and then do something. I heard one of them say once, for the placental ERV, they actually thought that it jumped there during the life of the embryo. Well, no, it didn't. It jumped there a long time ago, right?
That's not how embryogenesis works.
They don't understand transposons at all. Now, there are some jumps that were made in the germline, and those are the ones that end up creating this multiplicity of lines and signs that we have, right? So it happens fairly often in the germline. But in your body right now, you have some genes that are probably going to make a jump in a particular cell. And if it jumps in such a way that it lands into a regulatory part of a growth gene, you will get cancer. Because these things are still jumping a little bit here and there. There's all kinds of checks, and most of them are dead. There are three kinds of transposons that jump right now: the ALU, L1, and the SVA, I think it is. I always want to say SVU, but that's like a show, isn't it? Isn't it a TV show, Scott? Anyway, so Andrew, do you have any questions about ERVs and like some of the misunderstandings that are going on here? I mean, these are things that are packaged in such a way that when they get transcribed, they create basically a set of proteins that is recognized and reinserted into DNA occasionally. Now, where it gets reinserted is a real tough thing. There is no evidence that it is reinserted at a precise location in any genome. There is a lot of evidence that they are strongly reinserted in certain areas or certain types of DNA, like GC rich maybe, or in the regulatory region of proteins. There's some evidence that they will insert somewhere there, but there is no evidence that that is a precise insertion. It could be 100 nucleotides upstream, downstream. We don't know where the hell they're going to pop in because they're fucking viruses. they're not, they're not extremely precise like the creationists want to say.
Yeah.
So, okay. But let's think about it. So if God put viruses in Adam and Eve so that they could be functional, okay, how many did he need to put in there? He put in 50% of their genome, and yet we can't find functionality for all but a handful of them, a few hundred. Well, we found hundreds out of millions that are functional so far, that do something. They have some regulatory effect, or they will actually do something. The other part of functionality is that these viruses being in your genome manage to trigger your immune system. And SFT always talks about how they're highly functional and needed for your immune system. Well, you only need a few of them to do that. You don't fucking need 50%. So, I mean, is there any way to steel man their idea that they believe that God put these viruses in humans, they escaped out and became viruses on their own, right? It's called the Vige hypothesis, VIGE. I forget what it stands for. Okay. They think that viruses evolved from what God put in Adam and Eve's genome and in the genomes of all these animals. How would all that work? And why would God put something in that just randomly jumps around your fucking genome? I mean, how is this randomness functional is what I want to know, right?
It's randomly functional in a very randomly non-random way.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Could you turn that into an acronym for me?
I can't remember what I said now.
Got the cancer. Anyway.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I mean, I wanted SFT to come on and I wanted to think about, okay, if God did this on purpose, then how the fuck does this work? I want to know how it works.
Yeah, he's not going to do that.
No, he ain't. He hasn't responded to my email. So.
Oh, that's disappointing.
That is disappointing. But I don't know. There's some other little diagrams here that I have. This one, miscellaneous heterochromatin, signs, lines. You can see signs and lines occupy a big part of our genome. And I think it's problematic. And then we have introns, and introns are really not all that conserved except for very small parts of them. So, yeah. Miscellaneous heterochromatin. I've never seen that one before, but yeah, I'll go on with that. Miscellaneous unique sequences, simple sequence repeats, LTR transposons. Those are ERVs, the LTR transposons up here, 8%. And none of the ERVs, they think maybe ERVK. They detected a few places where that has actually transcribed itself, but for the most part, ERVs are done. They're dead. They don't do anything anymore. And those are the ones that actually have they have that little ENV gene. Now that ENV gene is useful for a virus that attacks your cell and it creates an envelope for itself, and then it can break out of your cell and attack other cells. But it doesn't do anything in human endogenous retroviruses. It's just there. What it tells you is that this thing was a virus at one point, and somehow it got into a developing germline cell, and it ended up transcribing itself. It failed to kill that cell because it failed. It failed to jump out and do what viruses do, right, which is reproduce. And then it became part of our genome. Whoa. And
It
then
just snuck itself in there and took a nap, and suddenly it was caught.
it was caught. Yeah. And then it ended up replicating. And that's where
Or it came and it was like, what the heck? How do I get out of here? I forgot.
yes. Yep. Okay. So here we have another one. A large proportion, 44% of the human genome, I've heard 48, is occupied by transposons. And 35 to 40 families of the ALU, L1, and SV elements, and possibly ATRVK, remain actively mobile in the human genome. And what that means is that it could happen in the germline and end up in future generations if it fixes in the population, or it could happen in you as you live your life, in your cells as they divide, right? That is the fucking problem for creationists. Why would God put randomly jumping viruses in you that oftentimes kill you? I don't know.
He has ways that are above ours.
Well, after the fall of Adam, right, and Eve, when Eve ate the apple, apparently mutations were introduced into these ERVs. I don't know, or God suddenly let them start jumping around. I don't know, randomly,
Jumping around.
So it was a radioactive fruit of some kind.
Yeah.
Caused a bunch of mutations.
I invite creationists to come in here and tell me how the fuck this works. I want to know, and I want to see proof for what John said, that they jump into precise locations, because I'm pretty sure it was him that, like a year ago or so, he had the misunderstanding that the virus jumped in and then started doing something, right away, started having a function, which is just stupid. Ignorant.
Well, Speed, you haven't read any of the creationist literature out there. You need to go out and Google it.
Actually, I have read quite a bit of it, and I'm just horrified.
Horrified. That's a good word.
Yeah, they leave so much out. What else we got here? We got a whole bunch of stuff on ERVs. I don't know. DNA only transposons. I don't know. We have other stuff. Oh, here's a cute picture. I don't know what this is. I have no idea. Oh, somatic tissue, and germline.
Is that an eyeball?
I don't know. No, it's a cell.
Oh, okay.
It looks like an egg cell.
I was studying something and I'm not sure what the hell it was. Oh, here's a good picture. Okay, this is a really good map of, let me see if I can make that bigger for everybody. This is in that 10 things you need to know about transposons paper. And this is the classification here. So you have two types, you have two classes. You have the kind that basically create DNA and the DNA inserts itself, and you have the other kind that copies itself into RNA and then copies back with a retro, what is it called? Retro something. It copies itself back into the genome. And that's what we're talking about with these right here are ERVs, and here ERVs. And then we have the, these are the LTRs. They have long terminal repeats on each side, like a lot of viruses do, and that makes it ERVs. And the ones that don't have that are lines and signs and PLEs, basically. So that's kind of like the classification of all the viruses. Now, if you look at let me see. God, I sure wish they were better at this, because for some reason I got to go through all my damn things in order to find something I want. Oh yeah, here we go. Okay, this is cool. This shows like the phylogeny of class 1 and class 2 viruses. So it shows that we can classify them using statistical methods and genetics, and they're all related. You know, they apparently came from one source, and then mutated and modified and ended up proliferating in these manners. So, anyway. Anything else you want to add to this mess?
I don't think so.
I'll make myself smaller again.
Should we open up the room, see if anyone wants to join? If not, we'll shoot it in the head.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yep. Oh, I kind of wanted to go back to that Tucker Carlson thing and that thing that lady said on
Okay.
that podcast. Let's see. Okay, I opened the room. Anyway, she was saying that basically women have put up with this shaming for years,
Mhm.
you know, and endured it without tanning anything, without tanning their boobs or anything. I don't know. It tried to compensate for it. But, you know, now that males are, according to the right, are under fire, you know, for being male assholes, I guess. I don't know. Big testosterone filled club bearing, wife beating bastards. Now that we're under fire for that, they think males are like this discriminated species, and somehow it's making our testosterone lower.
Well,
And but I mean, this whole obsession with your dick and testosterone, who cares? Who gives a
Well,
fuck?
you know what they say, when others achieve equality, that feels like persecution to the privileged.
Yeah, good point. Good point. I think that's kind of what's going on. But I mean, God, you know, and he'll get like millions and millions of people to follow them, and these people that are marketing these ball roasting devices are going to make millions of dollars. You know, by just,
Mhm.
I mean, for Christ's sake, guys.
millions, I tell you.
You know, and what it points to is male insecurity. I mean, what the hell?
Most
I
definitely.
I
Or just I want my values to be everybody's values.
yeah, I guess so.
Just trying to elbow yourself and push yourself to the front, and it's silly. Like I said, Mr. Rogers had it right. Folks, you're perfect just the way you are.
Right.
Don't go change it
In the
to
neighborhood.
try and please me or anybody else.
Yeah. I don't know. That's why one of the things I really like about getting older is like when I turned, I think 50, and between 50 and 60, when I looked in the mirror and I thought I wasn't all that good a deal for a girl, and I decided to kind of leave behind that whole mating bullshit thing. I mean, as soon as I stopped seeing everything in terms of I need to mate with somebody, my entire worldview and life changed to the point where I'm like, what the fuck was I worried about? I mean, why was I worried about this? Why was I worried about that? I mean, it's pretty amazing because, you know, and I guess humans have to have all of this inbuilt, you know, hormones and this system that makes us want to fall in love and mate, right?
Yeah.
And the fall in love part, I think, is really cool and should be kept all your life, even though I've abandoned that too. I only have memories of falling in love. But the sex part, you know, I have to go out and mate. I have to, you know, I'm a male. I can't be a virgin when I turn 40 or whatever. All of that bullshit, it pretty much defined my life up to 50. And it caused me the immense problems. I mean, all of my anxiety, all of my depression, all of my suicidal ideation was based on this feeling that I had to mate with somebody, right? And when I put that in perspective, having gotten older, my entire life changed for the better. And not only that, but a lot of my ideas started to come unglued. You know, a lot of beliefs that I had and things that you know, it's like, God damn, this is the way it is. You know, all that shit stopped, you know, and it's like, I recommend it. I recommend taking a look at your life and asking yourself the question, do I have to mate? You know, we got 9 billion human beings. Do we fucking have to do this? Do we have to keep doing this? I don't know. Anyway. Rant from an old man who doesn't give a shit anymore.
That's right. The sooner you can not give a shit, the better.
Well, I noticed in my 40s, like in my 30s, when I'd see an attractive girl, I'd say, "Oh God, I'd like to get to know her." In my 40s and my 50s, you know, when like my kids were 15 to 20 years old, I started looking at girls and saying, oh, I should introduce her to my son. I mean, rather than me wanting the girl, it was like, oh no, I'm going to bring them home for my kids, whatever. Which was an interesting turn. I thought that was really cool. So.
Of course, we joke about, losing your give a shit or whatever, but, you got to have some degree of it when you're younger just to meet those
you do
milestones in your life.
And it's everything. A beautiful thing to fall in love with somebody, but concentrate on the falling in love part and don't worry about where you put your dick.
Life lessons, everyone.
Yes, kids.
That's right.
Answers in atheism.
We want our folks out there to be well and to love yourself.
Yeah.
Because you are worth loving.
Yeah.
Except Gura, but
Yeah, well, Gura, special case.
I'm kidding, Gura. We love you.
Special case. So.
It doesn't seem like anyone's coming in, does it?
Yeah, I don't think Gura's listening. And come on, guys, click that link. It's right there at the bottom of the side chat. Come on in and share your ideas with us.
I don't really mind if we do end early. I kind of got some stuff to do, but up to you, Speed.
Yep. I'm hoping nobody does because I kind of got some stuff too. I want to go dig my ditch. So just one thing I want to mention that earlier I was driving home from Sam's Club and then later on walking around my room, and I was really getting irritated with my brain, basically wanting to do, like have a conversation with itself constantly. So I decided to shut that off. And I started to feel like when I walked, the feel of force on my legs and muscles. And then I got to the point where I just let sensory information take over. And I kept, every time my brain started to chatter, I would shut it off. This is called meditation. And it's a moving form of meditation. Mm-hmm. But when you go, like when you walk across a room, try to do so in such a way that you're not thinking in a dialogue-like fashion. And notice how much sensory information we ignore constantly. And then as a result of doing that for about 10, 15 minutes, I felt really good. And then, of course, my brain took off and started chattering and thought of all kinds of new things to talk about, including talking about what I was doing, right? So, I mean, like while you're meditating, you're thinking, oh, the benefits of meditation, right? So your brain is always fucking chattering and you got to keep shutting it off. But anyway, it really is a peaceful thing, particularly if you're doing some physical work or if you're preparing dinner, like if you're chopping vegetables, just fucking chop, don't think, don't chatter. It's kind of cool. Anyway, something everybody should do at least 5 minutes a day and you'll be healthier.
It really is. It's helpful. It makes a profound difference, but it doesn't really take that long to get the benefit once you figure out how to calm yourself down.
Yeah, and you get I think it changes. Like it will change the way you are, even when you are thinking. You'll still be getting more sensory input and information, and feeling where your body is in space. It's pretty cool. Living like a raccoon. How are you, Randolph?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
We're pretty good.
So I noticed on your 6 hour long
the streams that we do every fortnight.
Yeah, I don't know what y'all call them.
We actually don't have a name for them.
You and your
I noticed that Otangelo was getting quite the lashing from a couple of people. And I don't mean in a negative way. I mean he was being dressed down for his rhetorical and logical weaknesses and approach. So,
well, you meant the commentary afterward, after he spoke.
Yeah, after he spoke, I haven't gone back to view what he said. I figure it was pretty much the same. So, did anything interesting or new come up during that 6 hour period, or?
We have different people come up with different ideas to try to convince us, but so far they keep running into problems with their arguments, or that they're making assumptions about things, or that they try to go way off on a tangent. Those are the issues that we run into mostly. And so we haven't, none of us has been convinced. And all a person has to do is convince one person on the panel.
So
and
how
then
often-
success. They don't have to convince us all.
How often did they give you some version of you're too close-minded or you're not willing to be changed?
We've had that a little bit. And so I point out right away that the reason that we're all doing the stream here is that we are open to being convinced. But the catch is that the argument is going to be tested. So it's a matter of them having to formulate something that really is convincing, and it hasn't happened yet. One time somebody asked me, I don't think it was on last weekend, I think it was a couple weeks ago, they asked if that's the stream. Thank you for putting it up. Yeah, I see Speed of Sound put it up for us. That's what it looks like. It's just OBS. I've got the Discord chat on the left side and the YouTube chat on the right-hand side and the stage in the center. So that way people in either text chats can, their stuff gets shown up on the video for all of history, I guess, if it goes into history somehow. The one thing I did tell somebody was that there is something that will convince me, and that is for God the Christian God, it was being asked to give me the omniscience and omnipotence for 2 weeks so that I can do some experiments, test it for myself. I also want to kind of explore various parts of our galaxy and the whole cosmos and kind of get an idea of how big it really is.
Just take a tour.
Yeah, take a tour. Probably
the universe for a spin.
And find an empty area of space and create a whole galaxy, then destroy it. See, omniscience and omnipotence would give me the knowledge and the power to do that. And a whole bunch of people have asked me if they can come along. Where do they sign up? And I said, you won't need to sign up. I'll just know. I'll have omniscience.
Yeah, you've got the list. In fact, you would know in advance who was going to be there.
And they say, how would we travel? I said, very safely, because I'll have the omniscience to build a Star Trek-like ship with multiple bridges, because lots of people want to sit in the captain's chair. And we'll go for a ride.
I also put that in the description, but I got a couple of questions, Randolph. What the f is up with this fortnight stuff? I never knew what a fortnight was, but no, you said it's 2 weeks?
Yeah, I get a lot of people ask me that. The J.R.R. Tolkien used that word in his book a few times, at least once I can remember.
Did Lincoln use it?
Sorry?
No, that was Fourscore. Okay.
Fourscore, but fortnight is a Shakespeare thing too. So
okay, so it's 2 weeks. So I thought, hey, I'll throw this word out there, and because it's a 2 week schedule anyway. And what I find interesting is a lot of people have contacted me and said that the schedule has been educational because they learned a new word, fortnight. Some people know the game, but most people are just like, hey, this is an interesting word. I'm going to find a way to use it now.
Is it from 14 nights?
Yeah, so 14 whole cycles of a day and night. So it's funny
that clears that up for me because I never knew where they got that from.
Yeah, I don't know the history of the word, but that's what it means every 2 weeks. So I thought instead of saying clumsily every 2 weeks, I'll say every fortnight.
It should be 4-day night. 40 night. 4-day night? No. They should mention day too, because that's just 14 nights. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, they're not going to be distinctly separate nights if you don't have the days. So
okay, I got another question. I think I would like to join these streams, but don't you have like 30 people that are trying to talk at the same time?
Well, those 30 looks like are in the kind of the back room, and it's the people on the top with the slightly bigger squares that are the ones.
The people in the bigger, the people in the oblongs at the top there are the people on the stage. And so we'll bring up one guest from the audience. People can use the raise hand option in Discord, and then we'll see a little hand show up next to their icon. And then we know that they're interested in getting on stage. Taco is the organizer of the event. And he was the one who organizes and manages the queue. And I did it one day when he wasn't available, but normally he takes care of that aspect. So people keep contacting me and say, hey, can I get on? How do I get in there? I want to get priority. I said, talk to Taco. So it's just how it goes. But that's the audience there. So we're seeing last time we had a pretty even split of the same number of people in the Discord audience matched about the same number of people in the YouTube stream. So you double the number that you see, and that's how many people are viewing live. So,
has anybody come up with an interesting or decent argument that?
Well, we get some interesting attempts, and some people, it varies, and it's quite subjective because some people will think certain arguments are really good and others not so much. So it's really hard to say. There are people who put up a very serious argument, and they take it very seriously, and we take them seriously too. And one of the things that we really try to emphasize is that when a person comes on to present something, that we mostly just listen and let them finish their whole argument. Unless it's somebody going way too long, then we'll stop them. But most of the time, people just need to get a chance to do it. Because you've seen some of the call-in shows where people will get interrupted right away. And we're really wanting to not do that because people want to try to explain their whole idea. And the way I see it is if they want to throw a whole bunch more premises in, then that's their risk that they're choosing to take. So it just gives us more avenues of rejection for them.
That's what I hate about the atheist experience is the Christian never gets this argument out ever. You know, they get cut off. Was it that way when Matt wasn't on there?
See, and where I will interrupt is I will ask them to clarify a term or to clarify something that didn't come through right. But other than that, we'll let them do their argument, which I think is acceptable, and I think most people find that to be just fine. So,
did you watch Atheist Experience this past Sunday where Forrest Valkai, he's a young science teacher / communicator or whatever. We've looked at videos and stuff from his channel before. Him and Jim Barrow, is that his name? Jim Barrow?
Jim Barrows? I think it might have in the end.
Yeah, and they were on there, and it went really well. No interrupting, no nastiness that I picked up on. There might have been a little bit later after I'd left the room for some things. But, did a great job. They really need to be careful about who they have on there. Otherwise, to me, it was Forrest Valkai that made me want to watch it. Otherwise, I haven't been watching Atheist Experience. I
tried watching it a couple of times, and I got really irritated with the Christian being interrupted before they could actually present what they wanted to present, like being interrupted on just this minutia, right? Like asked to rationally explain every tiny little phrase in their argument, and some of them I kind of wanted to listen to. Like what I'm particularly interested in is Christians that have a personal experience with God, and I want to hear them talk about that and how that feels subjectively. And that was my interest, or has been my interest for many years, and I never get to hear that. He always cuts them off. I mean, as soon as you start talking about your personal experience with God, it's like, anecdote or, whatever. But that is the most powerful thing, I think, about religions. And that is where religion has the most powerful hold on people. It's how they subjectively experience that feeling of religiosity and what they're doing, what their practices are, right? And that is the point where I think we need to understand that experience from a human psychological, neurological perspective. And we can start to understand belief and how belief is not your friend.
Yeah, I think that's a really good perspective and a good point and way to go about it. I'd like to, I think that what we're doing is probably not really suitable for that because what we're after is for somebody to just kind of prove to us that, or convince us, right? Somebody else's personal experience isn't going to be convincing to most people, right?
Yeah, well, yet it's very convincing to each individual that has it, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is that I have had many of these experiences in my life. In fact, I had one today when I was doing what I talked about. And those to me are very powerful experiences, and they've shaped my life. I don't let them shape my belief.
Okay.
I let them.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, if I decided like my brain starts going to hell, with old age, and I decide I don't give a shit about any of this, it doesn't matter what I believe. Like if I go out and stand in front of an oak tree and I get this wonderful feeling of, that I'm living my life to the fullest, I don't have to believe anything about that. I can just live like that, right? And there are a lot of Christians that call themselves Christians, and if they thought about it and thought about what they believe in, they probably say, well, I'm not sure if I really believe that Jesus walked out of a tomb, right? But I have this feeling, and I want to live like that. And there isn't a fucking thing wrong with that. But I think as a society, we need to start straightening out this business between belief and our experience as human beings.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And I think also important is to do it in a way that doesn't leave people feeling like they're being put down.
Right.
Because as soon as that happens, the conversation loses its potential to be productive and constructive.
Because these people that have this deep religious feeling, okay, if you cannot deny that is a wonderful thing for them to have, okay?
That's right.
And if you do that and you try to say, oh, you're confused or you're psychologically twisted or whatever, you deny the experience itself. What I will deny is the beliefs and the dogma associated with that they go to. But the thing is, you can't be thinking about belief and dogma and have that religious experience at the same time. Yeah, I deny that you can do that. When you're really in the feeling, you cannot be thinking, oh, I believe this and that and young earth and all that bullshit. That's counterproductive to the religious feeling. So
yeah, those inspirational / religious / spiritual kinds of stories that form the basis of people's faith, it doesn't have to be a bad thing that you can't, go into the ground and dig up what they call realia, stuff that aligns with the fact that there was a Jesus that came out of the tomb. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, look at Star Trek. We all know
Yeah. Is it real?
Some people believe that Star Trek is fictional. It's science fiction.
They do?
Things like that don't really happen. Some people believe that. But
that was Star Wars.
That was well played, Scott. Very well played.
At the same time, people have made life decisions about going into STEM and going into astrobiology and going into engineering because, of the positive view of the technical future. The technology brings to the future, and people have probably made dedications to be bodybuilders after watching. Now this is going to date me though, Pumping Iron and things like that, or Conan the Barbarian. Just because those stories are powerful and impactful, and everybody knows, most people believe they're fictional, and so a story that's religious and inspiring and didn't necessarily happen in 3-dimensional, 4-dimensional, space and time. You can still have a positive impact on your life.
Yeah. Like Chitty Chitty Bang Bang had a really positive impact on my life. I don't know, as a fiction, but do you remember that with Dick Van Dyke?
Because you enjoyed candies that made musical notes,
the flying cars and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Toot Sweet.
Yeah. My favorite memory with my daughter when she was young, when she was 4 years old, is I got stoned on acid and we watched the entire movie together, and we were both down on the floor, and I was behaving the same as my 4-year-old, watching Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, being just as thrilled with it as she was.
I remember that soundtrack. We played that soundtrack all the time when I was growing up.
Okay, I told her that when she was like 40, and I said, do you remember that? And she didn't, but I said that was my favorite experience. And when I was ripped on acid and we watched Chitty Chitty Bang Bang together, and she said, yeah, I've been in counseling for 25 years because of this.
It was a popular show. Yeah,
it was a wonderful experience. I mean, I've watched some really Don't watch Exorcism on acid. I don't recommend that.
The Exorcist.
No, Exorcist, yeah.
By the way, I noticed something. I guess y'all were advertising it on your Discord there, or whatever platform that was. It's weakness. The weakness of Kent Hovind. That
Yeah.
documentary.
Somebody else made that, and I reshared it. I try to promote the people. So
that made me. That introduced me to that. Was it McKinnon Mitchell? Is that his name? The guy who did that documentary.
okay, yeah,
he's going to do one on Matt Powell as well.
By the way, I put that in my description of the last weather report on the 18th. So
maybe where I've actually clicked on it to watch it. But I'd recommend that documentary. It really, kind of exposes some things about Kent Hovind's past that I wasn't fully aware of. None of it surprised me, but I wasn't fully aware of it. So I would recommend that wholeheartedly, and I look forward to the expose on Matt Powell that he looks like he's going to be doing.
Yeah, I got to watch that.
And the channel name is McKinnon Mitchell, I believe. So you can go look that up.
So the kitty tells me that it's time to shoot it in the head.
In just under 2 hours. I'm starting a live stream in just under 2 hours.
Okay.
And it's going to feature Neil, the 604 Atheist. He'll be talking about 420 and related topics, legalization of marijuana here in Canada, some information about marijuana and things like that. And we're looking forward to being a productive conversation. And then we're going to open up the microphones, and there's quite a few people already telling me they'd love to get in and talk a bit about, one person saying that she'd like to talk about the law in California about marijuana. So I'm hoping it'll be an interesting stream. It'll be on my channel. I've just posted the link in the live chat. I know you don't mind, Speed. Thank you.
No, I'm putting it in my description as well. So.
Does the topic of legalizing hemp production also tie into that? Because isn't that something that was made illegal because of some deal that William Randolph Hearst made, or something where he didn't want people to be able to have their newspapers printed on hemp paper, because he had some sort of corner on the newsprint paper.
Oh, really?
And it turns out that hemp is a great material to use for things like all sorts of things. But the one that comes to mind that I remember for some reason is making frames for bicycles. That they're very light, very sturdy, very I don't know what the engineering words are, but you can do that. You can out of hemp, but we can't grow hemp in the United States.
Yeah, I remember learning years ago that there was when the military needed to mass produce uniforms during a war, they halted that. They temporarily lifted that law. The government did, so that in the U.S. so that the hemp could be produced, so they could make the uniforms out of hemp really fast, and because hemp grows quickly.
I have to tell this story again. Basically, in
temporary lifting of law. Go ahead.
In the early 1940s in Minnesota, there was a big, huge push to get all the school children to go out in southern Minnesota and plant hemp for the Navy, so that we would have rope, right? And so when I came up in the 60s, there was something called ditchweed in Minnesota, which was really low-grade marijuana, which my friends would go out and harvest by the trunkful in southern Minnesota. And it was a result of what these school kids planted. And then you'd boil it down. I used to boil it down and make these things I called hash balls. Like I reduced it with acetone and alcohol, and I had a recipe. So that if you took one of these 1 gram hash balls, you would end up laying on the couch, hanging onto the cushions, praying for it to stop. It was too much. But anyway, so then in the 1980s, Minnesota had a big push to get school children to go out in southern Minnesota and pull up ditchweed and kill it, which is just fucking ironic. I mean, it's just like, that is fucking beautiful.
Yeah, that's just essentially slave labor. So
yeah, well, or you could look at it as, let those little fuckers clean up their mess and pull it up, right? Anyway, but yeah, the government inspired all of that. I thought that was amusing.
well, apparently, Guerrero Mania took one look at my beard and decided to believe in God. So it's the glory. It's the glory reflected in the.
My dad was of that generation, with the hippies, where he called us hippos for some reason. We were so embarrassed for him, but anyway, he was really down on drugs and marijuana and all that. He died of colon cancer in 1981, and a few months before that, he actually had my sister go out and get him some pot, and it made him feel better because he was on chemotherapy and all that. But when I heard about this after he had died, I'm like, really? What the fuck? My dad? It's like, I didn't know. Who knew? But anyway, when you get sick enough, so shooting ahead, guys.
Thanks for posting another great stream. I really enjoy these, and I learn a lot. Although today I've not been paying as much attention, I have to admit, because I'm just doing last preparations for the stream. I want this live stream to go really well today. I'm starting a series called Fireside Chat, and we're going to bring in different topics and then open up the microphones, similar to what Amy Newman does with her midnight rantings. But hopefully there'll be less ranting and more marshmallows and hot dogs.
I will go watch it, and I think everybody else should too. And judging by the numbers, Randolph, you're the only one that likes my live stream. So,
we got to change that. It's a funny thing with the numbers. Just a few days ago, my subscriber count reached 420, and I'm doing this stream about 4:20 on April 20th.
Oh, nice.
At 4:20 p.m. Pacific time. So it's
okay.
I don't specifically ask people to subscribe and like my videos. I think people will figure that out themselves. I notice you aren't doing that either, which I think is fine. It's not necessary.
I'm not sure if I care at this point. It's just like, who cares? It's like, we have fun. We managed to put out some content. What I do care about, I think, is getting the misinformation stamped down on young Earth creationism. And I wish more people would watch, because I think we make good points. But but I could be a little more organized in presenting it, and then I would be proud, and then I would promote it.
Well, the streams I like, one thing I really like about your streams is that you put up these diagrams and you explain you draw the diagrams as you're explaining, and they're nice to look at with the colors and all this. And it helps to understand the concept when there's a visual mixed with it, even though it's just drawings and lines and arrows and things. It does help a lot, actually. So
I wish I were more talented at video production, because I found something out. I've got a friend who's studying neuroscience of schizophrenia and diseases, right? Okay. And so she's trained in neuroscience and a number of other, psychology, neuroscience. She's getting her PhD. And she said that she does not want to spend 2 years on organic chemistry just so that she can understand how molecular biology works. Okay. And I was telling her that there's a niche here, like in college, if you want to understand structural organic chemistry, you have to go through all this bullshit that you never use. Nucleophilic reactions and orbitals and this and that. And what's really needed is for somebody to very simply explain how molecules hook together, right? And I thought if I were more talented at creating videos, this would be an endeavor that would be really worthwhile. A series that basically brought the layman up to the point of being able to go to the wiki and understand when you see one of these molecules, kind of have some idea what the hell you're looking at and how it works. So that's something that I'm thinking about, and maybe somewhere at some point I've got all these tools. I've got to actually try to do a video, but I'm old and lazy and fat, so.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to underline something. I want everybody to to look at the screen and look into my eyes. And if you're tempted to pull a Tucker Carlson and have your testicles tanned, please go step in front of a mirror, look in the mirror, and say, you are perfect just the way you are. Okay? Don't be thinking you need a little more of this or a little more of that to be acceptable. You're acceptable the way you are. Okay?
Don't be roasting those chestnuts.
That's right. Yeah. Be nice to your nuts.
Yeah. Yep. Anyway.
Well, you might want to zoom this up. I find
thank you. It's even dumber. Yeah, that's the look that he always has, where it looks like he just now, for the first time in his life, opened his eyes. And it's like, wow, what is that?
Yeah, I always feel like he's suffering from a migraine headache or something. It's something nasty like that. It's just
he's like really confused about life. I think I don't get it. He is such a tosser. And so I signed up for the Fox News app yesterday and started listening to him. And I was listening to his logic that basically somehow Hillary Clinton and the email thing led to what we're doing in Ukraine today and how we're responding to Putin. And I'm like, how in the fuck did you get from there to here? And it's like, oh my God. And I don't know.
Well, he's a bird's eye brain. Isn't he part of the bird's eye? What's his family money in?
Oh, is it really? Maybe.
Yeah, he's got family money, corporate family money.
Bird's eye peas and corn and shit like that.
I think so. I'm not sure, but it's a big, well-known corporation or whatever. He's just been living in an ivory tower his entire life.
Yeah, well.
So maybe it's just the case that he actually understands and knows better, and yet he's making lots of money from this, and
he's
that's
just real cynical.
And that's why he has that look, because he just can't believe that people are buying it.
Yeah. I wonder if he's really a normal person, and this is entirely a show.
See, that was the case with Bill O'Reilly. And Alex Jones, it's hard to say, probably, but
yeah.
But I think Alex Jones has a good voice for a cartoon character that's out there kind of causing trouble and getting around and is popular. He's got a unique voice. It'd be perfect for that. Some kind of a bulldog running around.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, boys and girls, we're shooting in the head. Goodbye.
Thanks again.
Yep.
Goodbye.